please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to each of you. Before we do anything, I want to take a couple of moments and mark this point in time as we remember Patricia Page. I think it's more than appropriate that we do so together. And I've taken the liberty of writing a few remarks, which I want to read, and then for those of you who want to express yourselves individually as members of this body, please feel free to do so after that. First and foremost, I think it's important that we celebrate our dear departed member, Patricia Page. Patricia, as we all know, was a remarkable person and a dedicated public servant. She devoted her time and talent and treasure to both the betterment of her community and to our region. Patricia's authenticity, her strong sense of what was right, and her tremendous sense of humor made her a light for all of us in this room. Her laugh, and you can hear it in your mind, was infectious and disarming. She demonstrated throughout her time on this body a profound understanding of the needs of the people she served. And her tireless efforts weren't just about policies and procedures, but were rooted in a genuine desire to make an impact on those she represented. Whether it was her dog with a bone advocacy of the I-64 widening or her leadership on sensitive personnel matters, you always knew that Patricia would approach each challenge with a sense of purpose. Beyond any achievement, Patricia connected with anyone and everyone. She was not just a leader, she was a listener, she was a compassionate force for humanity. And in the face of increasing adversity, she stood firm, she stood tall, and she personified resilience and grace. And she embodied the true spirit of public service. As we reflect on her life and her service to the TPO and to Plan RVA, let us celebrate Patricia. On behalf of the TPO and its entire membership, I can say, on behalf of everyone, we will miss Patricia. We will carry her memory in our hearts and hopefully carry her sense of duty to the public as we move forward. This time, if there's anyone else who'd like to make comments or remarks, I'd invite you to do so. Please, Mr. Peterson.
I was very fortunate to be sitting in this room at Patricia's first meeting with the CPO. And she sat down beside me. She was very interested in things from the first meeting. There's some discussion going on. I don't, it probably had something to do with 64. But she leaned over to me and made a comment and was asking me to make a comment. I remember telling her, I said, I think to myself, this girl's pretty shy. So I encouraged her. I said, no, go ahead. And everybody wants to hear what you have to say. And she spoke up and she never stopped talking from that point. But we all loved her and we know how and she was great. But I'll also share right after that, we had the transportation forum at the Harley-Davidson Center up in right off 95. How did Patricia show up? On her Harley, in her leathers, transportation forum. Wonderful lady that'll never be forgotten.
Thank you, Canova. Anyone else?
No, go ahead.
Well, my story is, I was at the same meeting, excuse me, and Patricia almost immediately had honed in on 64, Interstate 64, and that was pretty much why she was there. But she was talking and asking a lot of questions. But I went over to her because I figured out where she was headed with this. And I said, you know, what you need to do is it's not going to really take place here. You know, need to go to the Commonwealth Transportation Board and do a presentation to them, for them. Stand up and they'll listen. And she said, well, how do I do that? Where do I go? And so I got the date of the next meeting. And actually, it was in I think it was in Henrico, or it was somewhere in the area. It was close by. And I told her, this is who you need to talk to and ask these questions and all that. And she said, well, do I need to get there early? And I said, no, you're an elected official. It's almost like she didn't think of herself as an elected official. You know, they'll put you at the top of the list. And she arrived. I remember it was the Secretary of Transportation at that time was Shannon Valentine. And the secretary came up to me because she'd been a delegate and I'd met her before. And so I said, this is Patricia Page. And I put her in front of her. And Patricia began right away talking about 64. She was laser focused on how that was going to work. And I told her who to talk to. She did everything right, obviously. She talked to the right people and she did it. Obviously, all I did was give her a little push. She just did it all. She was amazing. And then, of course, when the CBTA meeting came and I voted no for her project, it was like she wouldn't speak to me. But we got back together and talked, and I didn't realize that she was ill because she never let on really that there was anything wrong. And she always seemed so upbeat, positive, and, you know, and just, again, laser focused on 64. So it was, as you said, it was sort of her life's mission was to get things done for her constituency.
John.
I had the opportunity at the I-64 widening with Mr. Riblet and others to attend, and we didn't know whether Patricia was going to be able to show up, and she did. And frankly, she looked a little bit like her, weaker, but like her old self. But it must have been an act of will for her to be there, her accomplishment, because she passed about a week later. So.
Thank you. Yes, Mark.
On behalf of many different VDOT staff, both at the residency and at the district, Ms. Page was absolutely recognized as a very good partner. Worked with us as she was advocating for any of the needs for her constituents and Newton County, and was always just a pleasure to work with. So a lot of folks on the VDOT side will not as connected to her day to day as you guys may have been, but we certainly had a lot of respect, and she'll certainly be missed.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Dave?
I'm usually not at a loss for words, but this morning I am. This is personal, as it is for, I'm sure, a lot of you. She was a good person. She was a good friend and a darn good supervisor. I can't tell you the number of conversations we had at night talking about problems, challenges we had as a rural county. And what we should be doing in organizations like this organization and CBTA, and how we can make a difference. Last year, this time, we were talking about Christmas and how she would get together with family members every Christmas and they would play games. This is personal again, because we've lost a friend, a colleague, somebody, in my opinion, sets the example for what we're all about. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Dave. Please, Kevin.
I got to meet Patricia when we started serving together on the CVTA. And one of the things I thought was important was to go around to different jurisdictions and meet with members of the CVTA on a one-on-one basis. And so I had the opportunity to develop a very good relationship with Patricia. And Pat, I would tell you that although we voted no on that, we actually voted yes for a regional transportation package. But I do believe that that's what spurred the General Assembly to get the additional funds. I mean, they went from to 470 million. And then we all came back to the next meeting and voted again to approve $100 million for that project, which I knew she was never gonna let go of that. And it was an important project. And quite frankly, I hope that VDOT does name a section of that road after her. She was a very special person. I don't know how many of y'all were able to get some catfish out of her, but I did. She would love to go catfishing, and she knows how much I like catfish, so she actually surprised me one day here with catfish. Very special person. We're all blessed to have had her in our lives, and she will be missed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. Frank?
Mr. Chairman, I want to express similar statements about this fine lady. As many of you may recall, Ms. Page, I appointed her and Mr. Spoonhouse to a special committee. I only mention that to the fact that when I think about how successful the CVTA has been, is due to a stewardess like Ms. Patricia and Page. And I think all of us would agree that we had a team, we would want someone as tenacious as Ms. Page on our team, because she spoke for us, she spoke for her constituency, and she was the right person at the right time for this organization, and she will always be remembered. I remember speaking with her privately. I think I mentioned to her that I saw leadership possibilities in her, and I entrusted her to work on that committee, and she did very well. And in conclusion, she is the best stewardess that this organization could have had at that time. And all of us as commissioners, I'm sure feel as I do, hopefully, that it's been an honor to serve with her.
Thank you, Frank. Please.
Briefly, on behalf of Goochland County, we, and in particular, Mr. Spoonhour, when she passed, he sent a message, and he properly identified her as a real ally, and I knew they grew close on CVTA, and she was an ally for the rural jurisdictions and for this region. I didn't know the shy Ms. Page, I haven't been in that long.
She wasn't very long.
Yeah, I didn't think much.
But I do remember, I think it's been a little more than 2 years that I've been here, and of course I got to the first meeting thinking, what does this organization do? What are we all about? And after a couple of meetings, I said, I don't know really what we do, but I know what we need to do, and that's widen 64, because it was and when we were remembering her in Goochland the other night, you know, the thing that comes to mind is unmatched determination. And she will be missed. She was an ally of Goochland's and of this region, and it's a difficult loss. But I agree with the sentiments of this organization, and all of us are better for having known her and worked with her. Thank you.
On behalf of the city of Richmond, I think, you know, Patricia was someone that we could all look to as being an exemplar of what public service is. I never thought about what political party she might be aligned with. I knew she was here representing constituents. She did it with good humor, with grace, with, you know, steadfastness, and with, you know, deep intelligence. So I think she was obviously an inspiration to those of us who are here in public service, and she'll be deeply missed by everyone in City of Richmond.
I met Patricia at the Virginia Derby, and I just was carrying on a conversation with her, and she immediately invited me up to the New Kent, had a wonderful room upstairs, And I thought she was into horse racing because we were talking about riding. And actually, if I got upstairs, she was talking about riding a Harley Davidson. So we immediately joined because I used to ride during the years too. I didn't ride a Harley Davidson, though. Let's make that clear. I rode a 650 Trump kickstart. So you know what that backstage do. And my first meeting here was about this I-64 gap. I wasn't sure where I was on. Bill Kohler didn't bone me up, but when Ms. Page took off, I said, I know what plane I'm riding. She was dedicated to the cause with tenacity beyond anything, and she will be dearly missed. So I'd like to express condolence from Charles City County and the Board of Supervisors related to her work.
Anyone else?
Laser focused.
This time, Canova, I'm going to ask you to come up and just take my space for a minute. I have to take a call with a judge. I do apologize for that. But I'd ask you to come on up and.
Sure, I'll just do it.
You do it from here?
That's okay.
One thing I'd like to do in consideration of amendments to the agenda is move number 3, the chair's report, down before number 2 on other business. Let's call it 1A if you would. And I'll let you lead that motion so I can hear what this wonderful judge has to tell me.
All right, the amendment that the, what was this?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair. Motion to approve the change.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if I
wait a
may.
minute, we can't do that.
Sir,
We have not,
We had to do a quorum first.
We need to certify a quorum.
Thank you.
Oh, we tried.
Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Here.
Ms. Barnhart. Charles City County, Mr. Atkins.
Relevant.
Mr. Coda. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Here.
Mr. Holland. We have Chair Winslow, Mr. Miller. Goochland County, Ms. Lascalette. Mr. Lumpkins.
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Davis. Vice Chair Peterson.
Here,
Ms. Pritchard. Henrico County, Ms. O'Bannon. Here. Mr. Thornton.
Present.
Mr. Brannon. New Kent County, Mr. Tiller. Mr. Evelyn. Powhatan County, Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Carmack. City of Richmond, Mr. Addison. Ms. Jordan.
Here.
Ms. Lynch. Dr. Newbill. Mr. Jones. Ms. Nye. Ms. Robertson. GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Here.
Ms. Adams. VDOT, Mr. Totten. Mr. Riblet.
Here.
CTAC, Ms. Erickson. DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks. Federal Highway Administration, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Rucker.
Here.
FTA, Mr. Koenig. Ride Finders, Ms. Ruffin.
Here.
And Virginia Department of Aviation, Mr. Harrington.
Here.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum, one member participating remotely, so we'll need to take that action to later in the agenda.
okay, Ms. Firestone, would you, read the, remote participation?
Yes, sir, 1 second. Ms. Dubinsky has requested to participate remotely for a personal matter, specifically scheduling conflict that prevents in-person attendance. Her agency is having an increased number of COVID cases and have made the decision agency-wide to work remotely until that passes. She did request to Chair Winslow prior to the meeting to participate, so we would need a motion to confirm Chair Winslow's decision to approve Ms. Dubinsky's request to participate from remote location was in conformance with the policy for remote participation of members, and that the voice of Ms. Dubinsky can be heard by all persons at the primary meeting location.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, approval has been granted. Amendments to the agenda. We have the amendment to the agenda now is to.
I'll make the motion to move the chair's report to 1A on the new business.
Under D1A.
Is it D1A?
Yes,
I
sir.
thought it was D1A actually.
D, he said D1A is what he intended.
Okay, D1A, okay.
D1A.
All right,
Okay,
would be a long call.
Second.
all right, motion second, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the amendment has been approved. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, we will skip the chair's report and go to open public comment period. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak to the TPO citizens time? Is there anyone who is online?
We haven't received any requests.
We will close citizens comment. Okay. Lee, do you want to take this, Mr. Bushy, as far as the, no, we gotta do the minutes first. Minutes, everybody had a chance to look at review the minutes of the last.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval
Second.
and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes have been approved.
One abstention.
One abstention. Okay. Get an abstention from Mr. Atkins.
Yes, sir, I wasn't here.
Okay. Now we'll go to Mr. Bushy, Secretary.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Couple items for the Secretary's report today. In executive, we discussed the scheduling for the January 4th meeting. As the boards for a lot of the jurisdictions will be reorganizing and potentially appointing new members, the executive committee thought it was advisable to cancel the January meeting and just meet again in February. So I just wanted to share that as an update, and we'll be sending that out. The second item that I wanted to give you under the Secretary's report is the Smart Scale letter. So that was available with the agenda packets I've distributed around the room. So at the last meeting, this board voted to take action to send a letter opposing the change to the application limits for Smart Scale. And then more generally, just opposing the process, the fact that the MPOs weren't involved and duly consulted in the process of developing these changes. So that letter is available for you to review. That was developed by staff in consultation with our council. So that was sent out on the 14th, which was the deadline that the CTB had for getting letters from anyone, interested parties, and that was shared with our CTB member as well. I did want to share the outcomes of that process. So the CTB did meet earlier this week on Monday. As we discussed briefly in executive, it was a marathon session. It was about 9 hours long. So they had a lot of discussion. A lot of policy was made at the meeting. So it was a lot to watch. But just wanted to share in general the outcomes from the meeting. The most important thing being that there was no change to the application limits. So they were maintained at the same level. We'll still have 10 applications for this upcoming round as the TPO. Some of the other big things that happened, land use was eliminated as a factor across the board. So there were 6 different factors that we've looked at historically. Land use was completely removed. It had been proposed to become a sort of a multiplier for the other 5, but the action was actually just to remove it completely. The weights for safety and congestion were both increased up to 25%, I believe. So those are going to be half of the score will be based on those 2 factors now. There was a reduction in the eligible types of high priority projects, which is what we as the TPO can submit. The main impact for us is that standalone bike ped projects are not eligible, or standalone transit, if it's not a BRT line, would not be eligible unless it comes from one of these studies. So like the STAR studies and AMP studies that VDOT does, the pipeline studies from OIP, or if it comes out of an MPO study that's been coordinated with the state. So there's still some figuring out exactly what that entails and what that's going to look like. But there was a reduction, but it wasn't as severe as had been originally proposed. The step 2 in the selection process was eliminated, so the high priority projects is in fact a statewide process now. So all the projects that are eligible for high priority will be ranked and they'll go into that competitive process. The economic development changes that we discussed last time, moving toward a statewide database rather than requiring each locality to provide site plans and zoning approvals, was approved. So that is a benefit. It will make it a little easier on staff to put these applications together for everyone, both local and MPO staff. And then the switch on freight, those measures we discussed last time a little bit more in depth. The other big change from the meeting is congestion. The current or the previous rounds was looking at current year. The proposal had been to look at 10 years out, and where the board landed was on 7 years out. So it's kind of looking at, we have a 6-year funding program. So right after that, what would that look like was kind of the thought process behind it. So those are in general, the changes that came out of it, but I think we can point to a success on the application limits. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up on that.
You can go over the letter.
Sure, I can go over the letter a little bit more in detail, but essentially the letter, we tried to capture the board's discussion. Basically, the letter followed what had initially been provided, and in essence, we said that we support and understand the need to review the program. However, we have serious concerns about the change in the application limits. You know, the program has become more strenuous over time. The MPO and localities have made efforts to be able to meet that. And we have been coordinating for the past few years with both Plan RVA and the CVTA to try and fund and come up with a program for this region that touches all of our regional bodies. And so we were opposing the change to the application limits because it would slow down our progress that we're making. The other component of it was that we recognized that the change to step 2 was potentially a benefit to moving toward a truly statewide. So the most important projects in the state are in fact being funded. However, in general, we had concerns with the process. The process didn't involve the MPOs as much as we felt it should have. And the CTB is required to do this in coordination with the MPOs when setting the statewide prioritization. So that was the main concern. And the ask at the end was for the board to basically defer implementation of any of these changes until there was adequate time to consult with regional entities. So that part obviously wasn't successful, but we did get the primary goal of the application limits as well. So.
Question, just maybe a little for my education and maybe a chance for you to editorialize a little bit about your first take on some of these things. But increased safety and congestion score weights, you said that move those to 50%. That sounds significant. And then when you add the last bullet, change congestion measures from current year to 7 years out, that seems to be significant, those two combined. Is there a standard out there? Obviously, we use congestion measures now, you said to current, so there must be some standards of how we do that. Are there standards, accepted practice standards, how localities and how this MPO will measure congestion for 7 years out?
Sure. So we already do travel demand modeling as all of our project selections. So with that process, we're able to go all the way out to 20 or 30 years to get a relatively accurate picture of what congestion will look like based on current trends in population growth and employment growth in the region. So that's the whole purpose of our modeling efforts, is really to be able to capture that. So the thought on 10 years originally was moving back to where we'd started with Smart Scale in round 1 and round 2. Then we moved to current year, and now we're moving back to a future year. So it's really, if it's congested today, it's likely to be congested in the future unless you do something. So it's really trying to capture those more proactive planning efforts that if you have a new development near an interchange, for example, this would be able to capture that that's coming, and we'd be able to see what that congestion would look like without this improvement as well. So that's the benefit, is it allows us to be a little bit more proactive to look at planned development that's coming down the pipeline.
So you're saying the traffic, the modeling we do now is we have it down, we have it adequate now, we're just gonna fold more things into it? Because you said a moment ago about population and employment, population trends. But I was thinking the other one, economic development site plans, and look at the database. So we're just gonna look a little differently at what seems to be a very important component, the economic development plan. Important component that drives that population and employment.
Yes, and those are separate measures. So the economic development is one measure, and the way that's been measured historically was we had to submit all the site plans and zoning approval. So everything that you did at the local level, we had to collect all of those, upload it all, and then they were examined for square footage of the building or whatever the use that was being approved. And then there was like buffers off of the roads based on drive time. It was a very complicated process. What the economic development side does is really just shift that there's already a state database that's being maintained by all of your economic development authorities. And so it's basically just collecting what's already out there rather than having us repeat that process. And it saves time for both VDOT and OIP staff, and then also for local and MPO staff.
Thank you, Mr. Bush, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Bush, on this letter? All right, continue, Mr. Bush.
All right, thank you again. Let me pull up the other presentation. So this brings us to the new business. Today we have 2 TIP amendments that are proposed by VDOT. And the first one, perhaps appropriately, is an I-64 gap project. So this is really the authorization to allow the second half of that project to move forward. So this is adding the right-of-way and construction phases to the project. Little bit of the overview. So it's segment B, and here's the overview of the project. It's adding a third lane in both directions. So one 12-foot travel lane. It will widen within the median, so no impacts to expanding the right-of-way. That way, it's from mile marker 214, more or less, like the on-ramps from 214 to the James City County line. So it's basically the entire eastern portion of New Kent. This amendment is basically a necessary step to allow the design build process to move forward. So because design build touches all the phases of the project at the same time, we have to have all of them in the TIP so the project can move forward, get authorization, and go forward with those RFPs. This project is in the Connect RVA 2045 long range plan within our constrained plan. It is regionally significant. It's adding major capacity for an extended area, but it's outside of our maintenance area for air quality. So New Kent didn't have any concerns with air quality previously, so it doesn't trigger any updates to our air quality conformity analysis. Here's a quick overview of the 3 segments, and you've all seen this before. So segment A, we basically took the same action last year, I think it was, to do this exact same thing, add right-of-way and construction, move the RFP forward. Now we're doing it for the middle section, segment B, and then segment C is in Hampton Roads, so we don't have to touch that component of it. So here's the proposal. It would move the previously approved preliminary engineering phase to fiscal year 24. It would add $1 million right-of-way phase in fiscal year 25, and then it would add the construction phase in fiscal year 25 as well. One thing that I did want to note is this one has a mix of CVTA funding, the General Assembly's funding, as well as federal dollars. So this is a project that touches all of the different funding sources that are on this on the I-64 gap. Total cost is just under $245 million. So the recommended action from the TAC was to recommend approval of the TIP amendment as requested by VDOT. There's a draft resolution in your packet. It's the first attachment to the staff report, which basically approves the amendment as requested and then finds that there is no need to update our air quality conformity because it's outside of the former maintenance area. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions there are.
Questions for Mr. Bush? I've got one. Does this require any coordination with the Hampton area for the remaining portion of the gap?
So my understanding, and Mr. Riblett can fill in more, but the Richmond District is coordinating all 3 sections of this.
That's correct. And segment, the easternmost segment, absolutely will involve some coordination with Hampton Roads, but they're very familiar with all 3 segments and they're engaged in that as well.
Okay. There's no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
Mr. Chairman, I think we need a roll call vote on this.
No, we need a roll call vote.
Yes, please.
Okay, let's, start that vote over again, Ms. Firestone.
Yes, sir, 1 second. Mr. Hodges?
Aye.
Mr. Atkins?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
On behalf of Chesterfield's whole delegation, aye.
Mr. Lumpkins?
Aye.
Vice Chair Peterson?
Aye.
Ms. O'Bannon?
Aye.
Mr. Thornton?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Addison? Ms. Torres? Mr. Riblet?
Aye.
Ms. Dean?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Ariel. Yes. Oh. Motion?
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I'll be covering this one as well.
Okay.
So this is another TIP amendment. This is for the I-64 Ashland Road interchange. So this one is another CVTA and short scale project, so same as the I-64 widening that we just went through. This one will add the preliminary engineering and right-of-way phases for the project. So this is a brand new project. It hasn't previously been in the TIP. And just like with everything else, we have to show fiscal constraint, conformity, have a public review, and the board approves it. So this project will reconstruct the existing diamond interchange into a 4-lane diverging diamond interchange. So that's the core of the project. It will require a new bridge over I-64 to accommodate the diverging diamond. And then there will be 2 new traffic signals that would be added as part of this. This project is also included in the region's long-range plan, so this is already part of that. And as with the other I-64 project, it's outside of the regional emissions analysis requirements because it's not in that former maintenance area. In general, though, interchange reconfigurations are exempt. So that's kind of the balance on that. Here's an overview of the project so you can see. This is taken from the Smart Scale application. So you can see the second bridge added over the interstate, the diverging diamond where the roads cross to the opposite side and then cross back at those lights at the ends of the ramps. So this project is 2 funding sources. There's the Advanced Construction Other, which is really CVTA funding that's on the project. And then there is federal money that was awarded through the Smart Scale program. So this would add $5.3 million in fiscal year 24 for preliminary engineering, and then that just under 1.3 million federal dollars in fiscal year 27 for right-of-way. The total cost for this project is $75.9 million. So as with the last one, the Technical Advisory Committee recommended approval of the proposed TIP amendment as requested by VDOT. There's the draft resolution of approval in your packet. The draft resolution adds the amendment as requested and then has the same finding that this is outside of the maintenance area and doesn't trigger any conformity analysis. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions for Mr. Bushy?
Mr. Bushy, would you be so kind as to help me with a term you used there? What is a constrained plan?
Sure. So when we adopt our long-range transportation plan for 2045, there's a list of projects that are in there which are considered constrained. What that means is basically we've projected out the revenues all the way out to 2045, and these are the projects that we can afford within that budget. So we have a separate list that's our vision list. Those are projects that we don't have enough money for, but if we could get other money, we'd love to do them as well. But the constrained plan is those ones that are within the available revenues, or what we expect we'd be able to afford.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Mr. Bushy? Mr. Hodges, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Yes.
Mr. Hodges?
Aye.
Mr. Atkins?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Lumpkins?
Aye.
Vice Chair Peterson?
Aye.
Ms. O'Bannon?
Aye.
Mr. Thornton?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Addison?
Aye.
Ms. Torres? Aye. Mr. Riblet?
Aye.
Ms. Dean? Aye. Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Firestone. And that, next item on our agenda, item C, Transportation Agency updates. Mr. Parsons, please join us for CDCA update.
Thank you. Good morning. I just wanted to take a few minutes to give you a brief update. So the CBTA met for its December meeting last week, and we are gearing up for announcements of round 3 regional funding in the new year. First couple months of the new year. I'm estimating it'll be in February, but that's an exciting next step. If you are keeping up with the CBTA, we have moved to a 2-year cycle. So the announcements for regional funding in February will lead into Smart Scale, the next round of Smart Scale, which starts next spring. And then we will come back to that, to the regional funding cycle in the off year of Smart Scale. So they're complementing each other, and we're hopefully able to assist many of you with Smart Scale applications and leveraging and the things that the CBTA is here to do. We are, as the TPO, we are looking forward to welcoming a handful of new members next year, and we're working hand in hand with Martha and her team to schedule orientation and onboarding to talk about what the CBTA is and what the responsibilities are for all the new members that are coming on board next year. And I think other than that, we're moving forward with investigating the authority to issue bonds to finance projects, and that is a slow, deliberate process. No hasty decisions will be made on how we move forward with that, but that's kind of the next 6 months or so is kind of moving through that process of evaluating what the appetite of the authority is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions from Mr. Parsons?
Mr. Chair, not a question, I just want
Rogers, go ahead.
if I may, express appreciation to Mr. Parsons for the letter he wrote to the Richmond Times-Dispatch lauding Ms. Page and her contributions to the region.
Thanks for recognizing that, Mr. Hodges. That was very well written. Okay, I believe Ms. Torres, it says Ms. Adams, but don't see her here today. I'm assuming you're gonna take her place.
Good morning. The only update I have is that we are currently doing public outreach and getting feedback on our transit strategic plan. And that will be through the month of December. And what that is our kind of our 10-year plan with a 6-year constrained outlook, which is a requirement for our funding for DRPT. And actually will feed into our regional public transportation plan, which is required for CBTA. So that's out there, public feedback, and we're having public meetings to go with that as well.
Questions on the GRTC? Thank you very much. Ms. Dean.
Good morning. The RMTA board actually met last week. They had their annual board retreat where we talked about the plans for the future of the expressway system. And we don't meet in December, but we'll come back in January in preparation for what will be a busy budget season for us. So that's all I have to report.
Questions, comments? We will move on. Ms. Davinsky, are you still with us online?
Of course I am. Thank you so much to you all. Thank you so much for the accommodation. So yes, in our office, we have had a significant number of staff that have tested positive with COVID. So this week we are on full telework. And so it has to be significant enough for at least the 45, 50 in our office to have this shift. So out of an abundance of caution, I am okay, but I am also dodging the stomach bug that my daughter caught. So I am glad that I am here and not there. So for my agency update today, we launched just on December 1st our new grants management platform, Web Grants. So we are currently working through the launch of that system as well as the opening of our fiscal year 2025 applications. So we are currently providing kind of technical assistance through office hours Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday around noon, as well as we have some recorded demos on the DRPT website with some written guidance. So please be patient if we are slow to respond because we are currently navigating the launch of this new system. I do also want to note that we did have our fiscal year 24-27 STIP posted to the DRPT website. We are currently working through our second amendment with FTA, as well as the hiring of some new financial programming staff, so they'll be able to help with some of the backlog we've had on some of our STIP changes. One thing to note is that we started just a couple months ago for the Virginia Breeze bus lines, our intercity bus system, service, an east-west study. So if you are familiar with our service, we currently run 4 routes, but we're now kind of thinking of a 5th one that connects between the Stanton-Harrisonburg area all the way out to the Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach kind of terminus. So we're working with a consultant, and we have sent out surveys for any of the MPOs, stakeholders that are along the 64 corridor, which should also include you all, to kind of give us feedback on what would be some key destinations or interests, whether that is the full corridor, or if it's going to be just sections along the east-west corridor itself. There will also be virtual open house that will be held, 3 of them next week, on the 12th, 13th, and 14th, and I'll include that in my agency update. The last thing I will note is that there was a notice of funding opportunity that came out on November 28th for the ATTAIN program. ATTAIN stands for the Advanced Transportation Technology and Innovation Program. In particular, they're looking for innovation or innovative solutions. And so there has been a number of awards that have been related to sort of mobility services and microtransit. The application deadline is February 2nd, and they did have an information session held yesterday with a recording. But if you are interested in kind of exploring applying for that, please reach out to us if it's something that's transit related. And that is all I have for my update.
Thank you, Mr. Dubinsky. Any questions from Mr. Dubinsky? Hearing none, Mr. River, I'm assuming you're filling in for Mr. Tucker today.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning. We will certainly provide our agency update in written form. I want to cover a couple of highlights real quick. The CTB did meet earlier this week. There were a number of actions. Smart scale will certainly be the largest time-consuming topic of conversation, but it's also noteworthy that they did approve the amendment to the MOA between CBTA and VDOT, as well as the revised standard project agreement template. Along with that, the ability for the commissioner to enter into those agreements on CTB's behalf, so that will help be able to process those more efficiently moving forward without having to specifically get on CTB agendas for each one of those actions. Mr. Bushing did a very good job summarizing the outcomes of the smart scale discussions that the CTB had. We do anticipate that an updated technical guide that will be available to staff and applicants to guide them through the application process and help them navigate that process. We do anticipate that a draft of that will be available sometime later this month, with it being finalized and posted on the website in January. That's all in anticipation of the pre-app schedule starting March 1st. So good to have that on your radar. Applications preliminarily can start to be entered in March 1st of next year. A lot of discussion about 64 this week. We are beginning to do some barrier installation along the sections of 64 that are going to be under construction. Tree trimming activities will begin in the coming weeks. So we want to certainly bring you relevant updates in terms of what we expect to see for construction as you travel up and down that corridor. Not a lot of significant changes at this point on the fall line development, but we are still keeping in close contact with the Fall Line Trail Working Group in terms of the progress on both Design Build 1 and Design Build 2. We do have a public hearing next week along West Broad Street for the West Broad Street Transit and pedestrian improvements. That is December 13th from 5 to 7. That is a smart scale funded project on that portion of the corridor. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions from Mr. Ribbit? Seeing none, Mr. Rutherford.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. Happy holidays to all. Federal Highway has no significant comments to add. Appreciate it.
Okay, with that, we amended the agenda for, the chair's report to come as D1A, but I'm gonna go to D1B. Mr. Bushy, would you go over any future meeting topics?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the last page in your agenda packet are topics for the upcoming meetings. So as we discussed earlier, the January meeting is canceled. So for the next meeting in February, we have two major items that we're going to cover. The first will be the Smart Scale Round 6 an overview with the updated technical guide, and also our project selections. So we get 12 pre-applications, 10 final applications. So this board has the ultimate authority to decide which projects we're sending forward for that process. So that's in February, so we can gear up for that March 1st deadline. The second thing is our annual safety target setting. So each year we have to set safety targets for fatalities and serious injuries on the roadways. So last year there was some appetite from the board to actually go a little bit more in depth with that process and understand what that meant, what our options were. So we're working through a bigger process right now with the TAC to bring you a recommendation and a broader discussion on what we can do with safety targets and how we can apply that to the decision making here. In March, we have quite a few items. We have the Transportation Forum will be in March. So that is more information to come, but we're starting to work on that right now. We have the RRTPO CMAQ funding program. So we're trying to make our project selections by March, again, to try and line up with the Smart Scale program. So we have an idea of which projects are going to have leveraging funds going into Smart Scale. We'll also have a decision on the Transportation Alternatives program. So that is more of the bicycle and pedestrian projects throughout the region, much smaller scale. But again, trying to make those decisions by March. And that will be in coordination with our new CTV member. So it'll be an opportunity for us to see which projects are going to be successful at the state level and which ones we can pick up as a region. And then the last big thing that I have tentatively scheduled for March is the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority coming for an update. The board requested that we have VPRA come in and discuss some of the projects that are planned. If you saw in the news, there's a lot of money now coming to the Richmond to Raleigh corridor as well. So we're going to have projects on both sides, north and south of the region. So with all of that information, VPRA wanted to come back in a few months when they actually have a few more projects that they can share details on. And give the board as much information as possible. So tentatively, that's slated for March as well. So that's kind of the main things that we have deadlines for, timelines for right now. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any other items that the members of this the organization would like to have put on future meetings?
Mr. Chair?
Dodges?
I'm sorry, I'm not answering your question. I wanted to comment on the Transportation Forum. I think last year, the executive committee sort of worked with the staff in coming up with an agenda. Is that the way it's planned to be done?
So we can bring it to the executive committee. Right now, staff has been working to develop an agenda, and just tentatively, the focus is on the long-range plan effort that's coming up is where we're trying to, and I don't know if Ms. Martha, if you want to share anything more about it.
We'll definitely be consulting with the executive committee, given where we are in the end of the year and the start of the new year. We are moving forward to make sure that the logistics are lined up and ready to go. I think what we'll do is we'll have an official briefing at the February executive committee meeting, but we will need to communicate with those, as we know who our executive committee members are before that, because it won't be enough time to make those decisions if we wait until February.
It was, I think, a significant success, the last forum. I want to keep the momentum.
Absolutely. I will just say, as you all know, we're heading into the season of the update of the long-range transportation plan. And so we're really wanting to leverage the Transportation Forum as a kickoff, so to speak, to invite the community and the attendees to that event to be a part of the development of that next long-range transportation plan, and to invite those attendees to really be a part of the process for continued public engagement over the course of the next calendar year. So thematically, that's where we're headed, and would love to talk with individual members of the TPO as you have time or are interested about how you'd like to see that agenda really shape up. I think Miles and Chet and Janice have some really great ideas about how we can move it forward, and we're meeting in the next week with Chamber RVA to talk about the partnership to continue with them again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I would like to point out last year's transportation thing, the only issue that I think anybody had on that was that we held it at Main Street Station and did not have any discussion of rail.
Thank you.
Great point.
Perfect timing, perfect timing.
Sorry, I didn't mean for you to carry so much of the load there.
You came back at perfect time.
The judge was kind, so that's good. We like that. Well, at this time, we're going to recognize folks for their service. We'll start with the Honorable Frank Thornton. Frank, come on up here. I think we just do everybody together. Patricia O'Bannon, Mr. Lumpkins, Canova, and Mr. Williams. And we can get a little group right here and a group photo, I think. Mr. Thornton, please, sir. Lumpkins, thank you. Peterson, thank you, and thank you for running this meeting. Mr. Williams, thank you. All right, come on over here. All right, and Ms. Savannah.
Thank you.
What can we say, what can we truthfully say about this group of folks? Decades, goodbye. Decades of service to their local bodies.
Mr. Chairman, before she starts taking
Please
pictures,
do.
you don't get out of this.
Thank you. Appropriate?
Okay.
Add it all together, decades of service to our local bodies, lots and lots of things done on this board that have moved the region forward. And it has been a delight to serve with all of you. I want you to know, a personal privilege to be here at a time when so many things have changed. I think of the move here, I think of Smart Scale and the results we've all brought back home to our communities and the regional things we're doing as well. There is just no question about the impact on citizens. And so it is my great pleasure to present you with the certificate of appreciation on behalf of the TPO. I hope you will take it and put it next to the 500 other certificates being given and will be given in the weeks to come as we, some of us, conclude our service on this board with gratitude and humility. I thank you very, very much. Thank you. With that, I would invite any of you, if you'd like to make comments, you're certainly welcome to do so.
I'll start off. It's been an honor and a privilege serving with you. And I'm gonna be looking forward to all the great things that y'all are gonna continue to do for the region. Thank you.
Very good.
I believe I came on this board in 1997.
Easy.
And I just want to say that it's been my privilege to serve with each of you and some others who are here today. It has made me a better person. And thank you so very much.
After 12 years of service on Goochland School Board for 6 and supervisors for 6, I'm going on to Commonwealth's Attorney of Goochland, but this has been, it really has been a highlight. I think when I got on this Board of Supervisors, not all my colleagues felt the same thing about some of the regional efforts. It was, time consuming, difficult, but of course with transportation changes that have happened, I think it's great. All of this group has really stepped up and served the region well, and it's been an honor to work with you up here and everybody else. And like David said, I know great things are coming from this group, from the future folks serving here, and it has been just a highlight of my time on the Board of Supervisors, working with you all on the TPO.
It's kind of tough. I was thinking, well, I didn't know, Frank, you were 97, because I think I came on in 96. But I remember that it was a room full of men and they were smoking. And Times have changed.
The smell has definitely improved.
And it was one of those proverbial smoke-filled rooms. And they did things and said things really fast, and yet we had long meetings. I've never gotten over that part. But being more open, more public, more, ability to have public speakers and stuff like that. I never remember a public speaker for years. And so it was definitely a learning experience and a very large learning curve. And I hope when the new people come in, you will be kind. Of course, I wouldn't be, but they're gonna ask a lot of questions. And some that have asked me questions about what it's like, and I said, lean on the staff. Okay, you ready for that, staff? Lean on the people who know and ask lots of questions, so.
I can't top on what's been said before. I've been on, actually 97 was the year I quit smoking, so. But at the same time, I've been on here for 12 years, and it's being transportation. I'm gonna compare it to riding on a train going forward, making motion. And I just wanna thank everybody for allowing me to have a seat on this train and be part of this journey.
Amen. On behalf of all of us, let's also thank Chet and Miles for their leadership over the years, which has been outstanding and has moved us all forward. I'm going to clap for them. Thank you. Thank you. And did somebody take a picture of this?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Very good.
Only thing left is the chair's report.
All right, very good.
Chair Miles, my understanding is correct, the January meeting is canceled?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
January meeting is canceled, yes. At this time, are there member comments about any other topic? I think lots has been covered today, but any other member comments from any other organization or member?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
just in echoing all the comments you just made, I just want to say thank you to all the leadership that we are now unfortunately saying goodbye to. But I think the leadership that you've all brought to this region is what I think is a big part of what we've been able to accomplish together. I think the creation of CBTA, the effectiveness of investing in regional projects together. I know that when the results of some of the elections came out, people were like, great, we can make some regional projects happen. And I literally interrupted people and said, we've done amazing things, more is to come. You can't discredit the things we've invested with ERT. We've put Fall Line Trail first. We've made some incredible investments in terms of fixing congestion infrastructure across the entire region, whether it be highway exits to make sure people are more accessible, helping bring to New Kent the 3 lanes that they've been asking for a long time. And I really attribute that to what you brought to this commission. And I know a lot of things have changed over the decades of your time on this board together, but I think it's because of your vision and ability to work together and really show what we can do. It's been important to share. And I think going back to like a year or two ago, we were talking about communication. We're talking about how we need to be able to tell our story better. And I think we're now at that place where that story is being told, because we're now seeing things happen, right? We're seeing shovels in the ground, we're seeing work being done, we're seeing change happen. It takes time to engineer a lot of the infrastructure we put in place. But I want to say that it's because of all what you've done that this job, I think for me, has been enjoyable, because I know it took a lot of work to get to be on the same page as jurisdictions across multiple different population groups, different things of priorities and things we need. And I just want to make sure that you hear that from the city of Richmond's perspective, is that we appreciate what you have been able to bring to this city, this region, because I think a lot of times it's been seen as what Richmond needs, but we are one region, and I think we cannot do anything without your help. And I think putting all of our needs together and then prioritizing those as a group is what you've done. And so I look forward to carrying that forward with everybody else that's gonna be here too. But these are some huge shoes to fill. We're talking probably, I don't wanna put numbers in, but I heard some numbers set up there. We're looking to almost like 100 years of experience of leadership that is now being passed on to the next group. And I think that is an incredible testament to what we've done. And so I just wanna say thank you all, because I look up to every single one of you because of what you've done. I've seen all of your names and papers before I even knew that I was gonna run for office in some capacity. And so it's great to be able to work with you, and I just really appreciate what you've done.
Well, sir, thank you for those comments, Mr. Travis. I will say, one of the things that people may not know about is in the realm of GRTC. As you know, or may not know, Chesterfield was a owner of GRTC with Richmond for many years, 50-50 ownership. And one of the things that Mr. Holland and I were honored to lead and work on with the help of our board and the boards of Henrico and Richmond was to have finally representation from Henrico on the GRTC board. That was a long time in coming, and I think about that as being one of those things that just kind of went underneath the radar that no one ever acknowledged, but it's really important because of the regionalism that we all are focused on and the transportation options that we're trying to bring to our citizens to get to jobs, medical care, their family members, whatever it is. So I want to just highlight that as something that happened as a result of relationship building that goes on in this room, every month and sometimes more frequently. So.
And Henrico is the #1 funder and uses the most bus service transportation.
Right, so it was a long time in coming, and I'm glad we made it happen. So, Ms. O'Bay. With that said, it's been my honor to chair this last meeting. I thank you all, and we are adjourned. Thank you.